Welcome to Film at 50, a podcast that celebrates semi-centennials in the world of cinema. I'm your host, Brian Rowe. Very excited to welcome Joey Moser to the podcast today to talk about three-time Academy Award nominee Tom Sawyer, released in March of 1973. How are we doing, Joey?
I am fine and dandy. How are you?
Doing well. Thanks for being here. Did this movie deserve 3 Oscar nominations?
I think it deserved costumes. I'm a sucker for costumes. I interview a lot of people who are costume designers. So when I found out that it was nominated for costumes before I watched the movie, I was very intrigued. And I'm a sucker for a bonnet.
Okay. So, Celeste Holm and a bonnet. We were a fan of that.
That's like a gay fantasia all alone. Yeah.
Yeah, this movie got 3 Oscar nominations. It's kind of why I decided to do an episode about it. I'm not like the biggest Tom Sawyer, Huckleberry Finn, Mark Twain guy, but I'm big on Oscars, Joey, and I saw, 3 nominations. If it was just one, maybe I would have, gone to something else. But I'm like, we got to talk about any movie that gets 3. Like, we got to talk about it. Before we get to the movie today, Joey, I'd love for you to talk about kind of what role has film played in your life, and if you have any favorites, I'd love for you to share them with us.
Sure. My sort of entry point into loving movies was because my brother and I were polar opposites. He was really into sports. And my dad, after my parents split up, was determined to spend equal time with the two of us. So he would go take my brother to baseball games, and then he would take me to the movies. So every Saturday, we would see like 2 movies every Saturday. So I distinctly remember the first double feature we ever had was Lake Placid with Eyes Wide Shut, which is very different.
Yes, I remember that month. That was a big month.
Yeah. July. It's sad that I can say July 16th, 1999. But that's when it all changed. But no, it's sort of like I just sort of, we would go to the theater every week. We would start at a theater that was close to our house, and then the more interested I got in like smaller independent movies, the further out we would go. And so we used to travel like an hour to like little art house theaters and Pittsburgh and Squirrel Hill. There used to be a theater at the top of the hill and a theater at the bottom of the hill. So we would like, it would not be uncommon for us to see a movie at the bottom of the hill, and then it's like, oh, we have 20 minutes, let's hurry up and get to the top of the hill to see stuff like that. So that sort of was the genesis of my movie loving. And then I used to like work in a movie theater, so I would see everything. It just was always sort of a part of my life.
What did you like better, Lake Placid or Eyes Wide Shut?
I remember distinctly having very awkward conversations in the lobby because my parents were very they didn't, I don't want to say shelter me in any way when it came to watching stuff. They took off the parental guidance for when I would rent stuff from the video store. Like all my friends would ask me to rent the movie because I could. And I remember having a very awkward conversation in the lobby because we ran into these people that my dad knew, and they were like, "Oh, what movie did you go see?" I was like, "Eyes Wide Shut." And they were like, "Oh God, you saw Eyes Wide Shut." And I remember saying to people that it was better than Lake Placid. So yes.
Eyes Wide Shut, I think, has aged better than Lake Placid.
Yeah, I just rewatched Eyes Wide Shut right around Christmas time. So yeah.
I know it has kind of become a Christmas movie. Like, I didn't think of it at the time. I mean, it came out in July. Wasn't like they were promoting it as a Christmas movie, but it is very much.
But the whole thing's around Christmas time. So my husband, who's a Christmas purist, like he's very much like It's a Wonderful Life, Home Alone, Elf. Anytime I bring out Eyes Wide Shut, he hates that movie, and he's like, "Don't you dare put that on the line."
Oh, it's like if you bring out Eyes Wide Shut or Die Hard, he's not happy.
That's not a conversation. No.
What about Gremlins?
That's a gray area, I think. We've had many lengthy conversations where he tells me, quote unquote, what is right and what
Silent Night, Deadly Night Part 2. Good one.
I mean, he was
Garbage Day.
I own both the volumes of Black Christmas. He refuses to watch them. I had a bunch of my friends over to watch Violent Night, but I made sure it was when he was working a night shift. Um,
he couldn't be there.
no, he didn't want to. I don't know. There's like some magical purity that he doesn't want to get tarnished by my more open-minded viewing of Christmas. Um, yeah.
Do you have any like all-time favorite movies? Like, are there 3 or 4 that really come to mind as like your favorites of
Yeah.
all time?
Um, I'm sort of a comedy guy. I
Mm.
think all-time favorite movie is Clue, which I feel like by that
Oh,
point I'm a 39-year-old gay man. Of course I love Clue.
oh,
Um,
we're very close. I'm 38.
oh yeah, okay. Um, so Clue, The Birdcage. Um, I'm also into. I mean, I love Hitchcock. I
Mm.
love um uh the original Spiral Staircase. I love Rebecca, Scream. Again, of course, gay and whatever. Um, but yeah, those are probably my favorites. Pleasantville. I'm a big Pleasantville fan.
Ooh, yeah.
Good
Yeah,
movie.
movies of like the late 90s. We grew up at a really good time, right? I would say like, we were 12, 13 and 96, and that was a great year for movies. And then going
Yeah.
all the way into 99, like that was an exciting, especially for horror fans. Like after Scream, we had all of these
Literally.
slasher flicks and, teen
Urban
horror film.
Legend,
Urban
Blair Witch. Oh,
we were we
Urban
were
Legend.
there. We were there like during middle school, high school era for that. That was really
Yeah.
exciting.
I
Scream was like
remember.
I was just old enough to see Scream in a theater with my dad. Like I was just old
Me too.
enough. I just turned 12. He was starting to let me see some R-rated stuff, and I had seen Nightmare on Elm Street, and I was like, Dad, there's a new Wes Craven movie playing. We gotta
Mhm.
go. He's like, okay, don't tell your mom.
I
And that movie
remember.
changed my life. That was a
Uh,
life-changing
yeah.
movie.
I remember my cousin. She got really into horror movies because we had seen Scream in the theater around the same time, and but then she saw Urban Legend, and I remember distinctly where I was when she called me, and she was like, "I think it's better than Scream," and I distinctly just I hung up on her, and I was like, "You're wrong."
Yeah, that you don't even entertain a conversation. You just click.
Of course not. No.
Yeah, those are all fantastic titles. I mean, I just feel like when you like when you're 12, 13, 14, 15, like that's such an indelible part of your life when you're going to movies. I wonder about kids today at that
Mhm.
age, like what they're seeing in the theater, like their movies now are
Yeah.
Marvel and reboots. And it's like I don't know if they're having as good a time as we did.
Well, they also, I mean, the late '90s was also the not the coming down of what like in what independent movies were, but like in the mid '90s when basically anything Parker Posey was in, it was like this is independent cinema and blah blah blah. But it was also like I feel like the late '90s, everything was just getting a lot wider in
Right.
terms of what is out there, the voices that are getting expressed, the different tiny studios that might be producing something. And I think at that point, because we didn't have social media and we didn't have a computer in our pocket the whole time, I remember like looking up showtimes in the newspaper. I'm an old man, but I
Yes, I
don't know.
remember that too.
I feel like you had to maybe do a little bit more work
Right.
to find something you really loved. Yeah, same thing with like walking through like a video store. I could spend an hour and a half in a video store just trying to find
Yeah.
something.
And in the 90s, if you missed it in the theater, you often had to wait 6 months for it to come out on
Yeah,
video. Like it wasn't 6 weeks later, like it is now.
yeah.
It's like, oh, now it's like, well, I could go see that tomorrow in the theater, but if I wait 5, 6 weeks, it'll be on Disney Plus or it'll be on HBO Max. I can
Hmm.
watch that. But back then, it's like, if you didn't see Scream in January of 97, like I don't think that came out on video until like June. So you would have to wait.
Yeah. Or like if you wanted, everything is so accessible now that I remember, oh God, I can't remember what movie it was. I remember asking my mom because I knew something was coming out um, on VHS. Um,
VHS.
and I remember being like, hey, this movie is coming out. Can we rent it? If it's not too expensive, can we buy it? And remember, buy something from a video store. I remember one time I asked, it was like $100 something.
Yeah, what was that about? That was crazy.
I don't know. That was nuts.
I remember I wanted to buy something too in like 95 era, and they were like, "Oh, that is 99.95." And you're like,
Like,
"What?"
well, why? Well, why?
Like Disney
It's
films, some
special.
of the Disney stuff would come out at like 29.95. Like they'd have
Oh, yeah.
But like if you just wanted to buy a movie at a video store in the mid-90s, it was like a lot.
Oh yeah. Do they even have now that Disney Plus is so huge and they're releasing stuff? Does that mean the Disney Vault is not
It's never closed. It has
never
everything.
closed?
That
So
was
it's
a
like,
crazy day. That
is
first
the
day of
door
Disney
just
Plus.
open to the vault? Oh my God, I remember that. That was
When all of the classic animated films were just there at your fingertips. You could literally
yeah.
watch 5 minutes of Snow White, boom. 5 minutes of 101 Dalmatians, boom. It's like for decades, like it was so difficult just to like track down copies of these movies.
Yeah.
And now you can just watch anything you want. It's
I
very
remember
strange.
someone telling me, like, can I borrow some movie? I think it was 101 Dalmatians. And my friend was like, I remember them, he was like, now if I let you borrow this, the Disney Vault is closed. I'm not gonna be able to get it again. I was like, okay.
There's an amazing YouTube video. I think is it by like Yesterworld, I think did it. Like, and it's about like all about the Disney vaults and it had so many classic ads of like hurry up, you have just 1 week left and it's going back into the vault.
I was like, I'm putting on my coat and put on my
and so
shoes.
every parent in America is like, oh my God, I have to go get Snow White by next week or it's gone forever.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah, I think I
my
remember
hard-earned
when,
cash.
yeah, it was like when, movies like that, like a Snow White or a Sleeping Beauty, like they hadn't been available to buy for so long. And
yeah,
like, leave for the first time, blah blah blah.
And it's like, where did all those VHS tapes go, Joey? Like, where are they today?
I think they're in a storage unit from my mom's house somewhere.
Like, we had a giant collection of VHS tapes by around the year 2000, and I don't have any. I don't know where they went. Like, well, are they in like a garbage dump somewhere? Are they
worth something? Those like specifically the Disney VHS ones, they're bigger than every other VHS. The white thing with the plastic over it.
Oh, the days of VHS. I can't remember the last time I've watched a movie on VHS. Like my friend in LA used to have a VHS player when I went to stay with her maybe 7 or 8 years ago. I think we watched something.
Wow,
and
really?
The quality was so bad. I couldn't. I'm like, throughout the 90s, what we would watch, not it's pan and scan. If you had a big TV, it looked terrible.
Yeah.
And you just kind of that's what you were used to. So you didn't think about it, And now we're so like used to widescreen and it looks pristine HD.
Yeah.
And we won't settle for anything less.
No, we're so spoiled now. We're so spoiled.
Even when you go on Tubi, like how I watched Tom Sawyer. Is that how you watch Tom Sawyer? With ads.
That was a great transition, by the way. Yes.
Tom Sawyer is on Tubi, which has been a thing for Film at 50 lately. If it's not on Prime Video, if it's not easily accessible, I have found like 1 in every 5 films we talk about is on Tubi. They collect a lot of these 70s movies. And which is fantastic when you get to watch this movie with lots and lots of ads throughout the whole thing. What do you think of that?
Well, the funny thing was, I will say this is my first foray into Tubi.
Okay.
I feel like anytime I watched anything that was, older than the 80s, I could generally find it on Amazon. But then I do remember anytime I saw an ad for Tubi, I was like, what the hell is Tubi? And then when we were talking and I got the link for it, I was like, okay, this is Tubi. I get it. And then I was watching it and then I got up to like get a drink or something and the ad started playing. It was a really startling, I don't remember what the ad was for. It was for like health insurance or something. Like, going from, yes, Aunt Polly, I sure will go down to the watering hole to, is your family safe? Like, what is happening?
Yeah. You're like not looking at the screen, so you're like, wait, is that part of the
I was like, what?
movie?
I was like, Celeste Holm?
Something I do love about Tubi is the quality is usually pretty sharp. Like the movies look good. They're not poor quality, for it being free. Like the movies look really good.
Yeah,
you just have to sit through some ads sometimes. It's strange. I watched The Harder They Come, a 73 film we talked about, will have been about a month ago on the podcast. And it had one ad at the beginning and it had one ad at the end. And that was it. And I want to say during Tom Sawyer, there were like 7 ad breaks. Each one was 6 ads. And I'm like, why does
Oh, that's
harder why
weird.
does the Harder They Come have had maybe 2 minutes total of ads? And this movie, I want to say, was at least 20 to 25.
Actually, for me, that's funny. I felt like anytime it took an ad break, the ads decreased in size.
Really, they got bigger for me.
Oh, that's so weird.
There were 8 minutes left, and there was another ad break of 6 commercials, and I'm like,
Like I didn't have
why
an
am
ad
I
break
being
in the last
tortured?
40 minutes. Yeah,
I
that's so
have to
funny.
finish. I have to finish this movie. See what happens to good old Tom. What did we think of this movie?
I thought, okay, I thought I was going to hate it.
Right.
I'll be perfectly honest. I thought I was going to hate it, but then like halfway through, I was like, all right, I'm really enjoying it. And
Okay.
then there were some things at the end that I was like, that's an interesting choice. Um, but I don't think as I was watching it, I don't think that I ever read the book. I don't know if I ever went to such a crappy school that I didn't have to read Tom
Oh, I had
Sawyer.
to read it in 7th grade, I think, or 6th, one of the two. You never
I
had to
don't think
read
I
Tom
ever read
Sawyer?
it. No, I think it's like one of those things where I know all the things that happen, like
Right.
it's so part of our popular culture.
Right.
It's like with a lot of like old movies. Like an old movie, I feel like on a certain level I have seen it because I know some of the scenes or the images and stuff like that. So I know the thing about the painting of the fence, and I know the thing of
Going
Indian
to the going to the funeral.
going to the funeral. Yes, I think they did that on The Simpsons. I think I probably learned everything
Yeah.
from life.
Yeah, my
Um,
friend Katie, like most of the, a lot of films I talk about, she's never seen, but she knows of it because
mhm.
of The Simpsons.
That's how sad is it that
Like,
show is like the best document that we have of anything.
like
Uh,
I think she knew of The Shining many years before she actually saw The Shining because of The Shinning. I'm like, that's not the best way to introduce yourself to The Shining, but okay.
no, it's a lot scarier.
Hi, I'm Grandpa. Yeah.
No, but the movie was I didn't know before I sat down to watch it that this version was a musical. So which is fine by me. I like me some musical theater. I've made most of my friends, forced to come see me in a show or two. So I was like, all right, I'm down. Um, I would actually say the biggest takeaway that I have that is going to be very random is some of Celeste Holmes' speaking voice
Mm-hmm.
reminds me of Meryl Streep.
Oh,
It freaked me out the whole
like
time.
you closed your eyes and you saw Meryl.
I actually a couple of times like crossed my eyes a little bit and like leaned back in my chair and I was like, what's Meryl Streep doing?
She sounded so much like Meryl Streep that you closed your eyes and you thought, did she get an Oscar nomination for this?
And sure enough, I went onto IMDb and it said Meryl Streep as Celeste Holmes
Meryl Streep as Celeste Holm, like,
as
really young Meryl Streep in 73, like really great old age makeup and prosthetics to make her look like Celeste Holm.
this went from Kramer versus Kramer. That's what she did.
Yeah, that's interesting. I really like Celeste Holm in this. She's obviously an
Me
actress
too.
of great talent, and
Mhm.
she's a great addition to this. I found this movie like excessively mediocre. Like, it's not bad. It's just like it's okay. I think part of my disappointment was I went into this knowing it was a musical, and I thought we were going to get some big numbers. It doesn't really have like a lot of big numbers, and I feel like a lot of the songs in the movie are being sung like off screen. Like we don't really get a lot of song and dance numbers where they're actually singing the song, right?
Right. I actually was surprisingly okay
You were
with,
okay with that.
but the one song, I think it's when they're getting ready to leave, like the big production number after it feels like after an hour and 20 minutes. I was like, okay, everything's done. It was like, no, there's 28 more minutes left
Yeah.
to go. And I can't remember what song it is, but it's when everyone's like getting into a wagon and they're all dressed in their finery and stuff. And it sort of bothered me that the voiceover singing was exactly what everyone was doing. And I was like, why isn't someone just singing it while they're doing it? I don't know.
Right.
It bothered me. That one bothered me. Every
I
other one,
guess I mean, aren't there a couple parts where like it's the voice of the actor singing, but their lips aren't moving. It's like
yeah,
internal. And I'm like, why bother? Like sing it. it's a musical.
But then like the other song, like the second song or the third song, you know, Tom Sawyer or Gratifaction, those ones are kind of sung by the people on screen. I was like, pick a lane, people, do it. I don't know.
Well, part of my disappointment is that the music is from Robert B. Sherman and Richard M. Sherman, who did the music for Mary Poppins, which is just one of the greats of all time. And they're, you know, obviously very known for a lot of their Disney movies and things. And they seem like, okay, they're making the songs for a Tom Sawyer adaptation. They also wrote the screenplay, which I find interesting. Like, I don't know how many scripts they wrote. So they were a big influence on this production. And I didn't find like one show-stopping number. There wasn't. I was like hoping for one at the end, like give us something, you know, the way you know, Scrooge ends the movie with Albert Finney has this show-stopping 15 plus minute musical number that is dazzling. That's amazing. I was like, okay, let's give. I mean, it's Tom Sawyer. It's fun. Let's do that. And it never really gives us that. It's a kind of a quiet adaptation. There's not a whole lot of like style here. It's just kind of like, it just kind of quietly tells the story of Tom Sawyer in a way that's fine. But I was like, let's dazzle this up here if we're going to make it a musical.
I would actually probably say the most ornate thing in the movie is after, you know, the resolution in the cave and everybody, you know, celebrating Tom and Huck and his bravery and whatnot. Like he's in again, going back to costumes. There's an outfit where he has like a bow tie on and this like long sleeves. I was like, that's the most dazzling thing that it visually is in the movie. Anyway, no, but I can agree. It was just sort of like you would think a musical that is about one of the greatest American
books of all time.
I couldn't think of the word book. Book of all time would have like a big flashy, I don't know.
Yeah. Like on the boat, like on the boat at the end, like, you know, I wanted to see Jodie. I wanted to see Jodie Foster, little Jodie Foster, like dancing and singing a song and like hanging off the like that would have been great.
Something about Jodie Foster, seeing her as a child,
isn't it weird?
It is weird, but it's also just like she has the same mannerisms now. It's really strange. I was like, am I watching The Brave One? Like, what am I doing here? I don't know.
Like, it's been a surreal week. Like, a few days ago, I interviewed the Oscar-nominated cinematographer of Tar, Florian Hofmeister, which was really exciting. And he started the interview by saying, oh, I'm currently in Iceland. That's where I am right now. I'm shooting season 4 of True Detective with Jodie Foster. And so I'm like, okay, so I'm talking to this Oscar-nominated cinematographer who is currently shooting a season of a show with Jodie Foster. And then a couple days later, I'm watching her as like a 7-year-old in a Tom Sawyer adaptation. It's like, it's a very interesting like dichotomy there. But yeah, she was even younger in her film debut called Napoleon and Samantha, which was a Disney movie. They came out in 1972, which I watched last year. I didn't do an episode for it. But like her confidence on screen right from the beginning is pretty startling. Like she right from the start, like she's a really gifted young actress. And then to see that carry into all of the great roles she did as an adult, something you don't get to see with very many like Academy Award winners. You don't really see a lot of them as kids in movies. So it's been really interesting to see her as a kid in films like this and Napoleon and Samantha.
I felt like I could see her at an audition and, you know, the big executive being like, she has it, like you got it. Just see them. I mean, obviously she's not that old to you know, she's not being auditioned by George Cukor or anything, but it's just that's what it sort of felt like. She does carry that presence even as a child in this. It was really startling to me to see her.
Yeah. She's not in a whole lot of the movie, but I mean, I feel like when a young Jodie Foster pops up in something, you kind of like, you kind of sit back. And as I said, this is one of her early roles. So some research I did on the movie. The film was produced by Reader's Digest in collaboration with Arthur P. Jacobs, which is a name that I always affiliate with the Planet of the Apes franchise. It always says in those movies from the 60s and 70s, like produced by Arthur P. Jacobs. The film screenplay and songs written by the Sherman Brothers. They would go on to provide award-winning music for the film's 1974 sequel, Huckleberry Finn. There is a sequel that came out a year later. The director of the film is Don Taylor. He started his career as an actor. He's in a bunch of films in the 40s and 50s as an actor. And then in the 60s, he moved into directing. And in the 70s, he directed Escape from the Planet of the Apes. And he also directed Damien, Omen 2. Those are probably his two most famous films from the 70s. This is probably working on Escape from the Planet of the Apes probably got him this job, because that film was also produced by Arthur P. Jacob. So that probably kind of, made its way into this one. What do we think of the directing job by Don Taylor here? Is he doing a good job?
I will say something that I enjoyed what he did is I don't really like children. I don't like when kids are in stuff where, it just feels like they're it just bothers me. But I actually think what he can do with kids is actually pretty good.
Okay.
I was worried. There is one sequence that we could talk about near the end that I was just like, okay, this is kind of weird and I don't like it. But
in the water.
Well, anything I didn't
was like what's happening here?
No, anything the engagement scene stuff. I didn't like.
Right.
I just think it's kind of
when he got engaged to Becky.
Yeah, and
kiss.
they lay down in the grass. Or he lay grass. This sounds odd. I don't like this. It's just sort of like it reminded me about how this is going far off, but the political turmoil that some gay people are feel like you're doing this and with kids, and it's really not. And then it's just like, but realize that straight people without knowing it say, not over sexualizing kids, but say stuff about like, you say to a 5-year-old boy, like, oh, that's your girlfriend. Ooh, little heartbreaker. Like that stuff bothers me. Again, deep end, sorry. But I just thought that was a little strange. But I think like some of the stuff between Huck and Tom was really sort of cute. I liked time that anytime that Tom would come home and he would just be like lying to his aunt, and I sort of like that dynamic. Those are my favorite things about the direction, I will say.
Yeah, I think he captures some of the spirit of these kids well. Like I think the banter between Tom and Huck is pretty solid throughout the movie. I mean, probably the meanest thing I'll say about the movie, I don't know if you felt this way at all, I didn't think Johnny Whitaker was that great as Tom Sawyer. Like he kind of felt like an actor who should have been like one of the other boys painting the fence.
I mean,
like he's fine, but to carry a whole movie, I don't think he had it in him for this.
I mean, 40% of his performance is his hair.
He's got great hair.
He does. He has great hair. But I actually feel like when I'm watching someone perform, I shouldn't be like, oh my God, his hair is so cool. I shouldn't be thinking that of anybody. I don't care if you're an adult or you're a kid. It's just sort of
like I thought Jeff East played Huckleberry Finn. I thought he had a lot more presence as a screen performer.
I liked him. Yeah.
Like I almost think he might have made a better Tom Sawyer.
Like, let's tell the story of Tom Sawyer, but let's just shift the camera over to Huckleberry Finn.
Like whenever he's in the movie, like I felt like it came to life a little bit more. I don't know if it was like the age of Johnny Whitaker or something. There was just something kind of off with him. I don't know. It didn't quite carry the movie.
Yeah. There is something about I feel like with a lot of kid actors, not to generalize, but a lot of kid actors have to get through a sort of like yelling acting phase. And I think Mr. Whitaker was not through that tunnel yet.
But it shocked me to learn that they saw 4,000 boys for Tom Sawyer until they decided on Whitaker. 4,000 boys, and that's the best one you found.
You're the best.
No, I don't want to pick on Johnny. I don't want to be like the Razzie guys who voted the girl from Firestarter as one of the worst actresses of the year. That was mean. We don't want to do that.
Yeah, that was. Don't worry, Johnny Whitaker will.
Johnny Whitaker.
Johnny Whitaker. Well,
he's gonna call in and be like, God damn you, what are you talking about?
You son of a bitch.
This is my finest work. Well, what's weird is I really liked him in Napoleon and Samantha. He is in that movie a year before with Jodie Foster. and that I liked him in. Maybe it was just like the period of Tom Sawyer. Like maybe he felt a little
Okay.
bit too modern to me. That might have been part of it. Like because he works in Napoleon and Samantha.
How was his
But
hair?
his hair was not as big, I want to say. And maybe it was the hair that was distracting me in Tom Sawyer. But Johnny Whitaker revealed much later, apparently on an episode of Oprah, that he did not want to make Tom Sawyer. So they saw 4,000 kids. They picked him. He didn't want to do it because he wanted to go to summer camp instead. So his parents made him a deal. They said, you got to make the movie. You got to, but parents probably like, hey, this is a payday. Let's go.
Yeah. We love Reader's Digest.
They reached a compromise. He would shoot the movie for a few weeks and then he would go to summer camp. He said after shooting for 8 weeks, he was picked up by a helicopter on location and then flown to the summer camp. He said it was very humiliating to have the entire cast of young boys see him fly off in this huge helicopter as he left for the camp. That I feel like that shows that you're number one on the call sheet if they're picking you up in a helicopter.
In a helicopter, my God.
Like that's how important it was for him to get to summer camp. They needed to get a helicopter there.
Do you think it's worse for the? I think it's more embarrassing for the kids in the cast to see him take off in a helicopter, or the kids at summer camp to see this? Oh,
yeah, as it lands.
As it lands. Yeah.
Oh, he's in a movie. He's playing Tom Sawyer in a movie.
I bet he knows that for the rest of the summer. Because I would, because little kids can be little turds sometimes.
Yeah, Johnny Whitaker was walking around that summer camp like, ever read the story Tom Sawyer by Mr. Mark Twain?
Mark Twain.
That's me.
I'm
playing the title role. And I got to kiss future 2-time Oscar winner Jodie Foster. This guy.
And all the kids are like, what? What's that?
Oscar what? No, he didn't have the ability to see the future, but little did he know. Like Jeff East, I felt deserved a helicopter at some point. Like he should have gotten at least like a ride to like go get frozen yogurt.
That's the barometer of the kid actor talent. Helicopter.
Did Celeste Holm get a helicopter?
Celeste Holm was flying the helicopter.
Celeste Holm was flying it. Celeste Holm, she flies the helicopter herself.
Yes.
One other problem with Whitaker was he was a Mormon, and that posed a problem for the scene in which Tom and Huck smoke a pipe, since tobacco is forbidden to Mormons. Instead, the pipe Tom and Huck smoked was filled with ground up cabbage leaves.
That sounds disgusting. Oh my God.
Whitaker's like, I'm not doing it. This is against. And then they're like, okay, well, how about we fill it with cabbage leaves? Okay. I'm on board now.
That's a good way to make kids not smoke. He's like, oh, you want to smoke? Fine. Here's a cigarette. And it's just full of cabbage. That's what you should do.
My favorite shot of this whole movie, Joey, is the shot where they're having like the eulogy, like that funeral in that church, and there's that long tracking shot. The camera just, everyone's sobbing. The camera tracks back. I mean, it must pass like 12 different people, like kind of in close up. They're crying and they miss Tom. And then the camera goes all the way back and then it stops on Tom and Huck and they're crying.
Yeah.
That was the best shot of the movie. I thought that was very funny. I thought that was great.
Yeah, I actually sort of felt bad that I sort of chuckled when it got to them and they were so into it. And I was like, all right, guys. Like, oh my God. I don't know. That made me chuckle. Probably not the intention of the director, but here we are.
But one issue I also had with this movie was, so I'm a huge nerd, and that I've been going through Disney Plus since its launch in 2019. Year to year, I've been watching like the movies in chronological order, and I just left 96. So about 3 months ago, I watched Tom and Huck again, which I don't think I'd seen it since I was a kid. And a lot of the scenes in the 73 Tom Sawyer are in the Tom and Huck version. And I thought a lot of those scenes were done better in Tom and Huck, like had more pizzazz, had more energy, were funnier. and it's like a kind of a toned down version in the 73 that wasn't as funny and didn't quite connect as well. A lot of scenes that are in the, like, almost some of them almost like shot for shot, it seemed like. So that also brought this movie down a little bit for me. Like, I think in Tom and Huck it's done a little bit better.
I mean, you know, if you're of a certain age, you probably remember loving GTT.
Yes.
And Brent Renfro is probably like Brent Renfro,
JTT, Brad Renfro, Devon Sawa,
Devon Sawa.
Matthew Lawrence.
Oh my God. Um, yeah, so it's that's probably I do think that's one of the, when I was watching the 73 version, I haven't seen Tom and Huck since probably in theaters, or maybe I have a cassette of it somewhere again,
Mm-hmm.
somewhere. But maybe that was something that I kept thinking of. But I remember only seeing that movie maybe one or two times. But it made me want to go back and watch Tom and Huck.
Like the scene in the 73 of them getting engaged and
Yeah.
then Becky finding out that, oh, he was engaged to another girl, and her, jumping up and being mad. Like, that scene came off kind of forced in the 73 movie. And
Mm-hmm.
the same scene is in Tom and Huck with Jonathan Taylor Thomas and Rachel Lee Cook.
Rachel Lee Cook.
Rachel Lee Cook. And it's much more engaging. Like, it's a lot more lively in the 95 movie. In the 73, I mean, Jodie Foster is a little stiff in that moment where she's like, "How dare you?" Right after the kiss. It does, like,
Yeah.
it's okay, but it didn't have the same style, the same energy I found in the 95 film.
So are you saying that Rachel Lee Cook's performance
Rachel Lee Cook
is
deserves to have the 2 Oscars, yes.
so you're saying she's better and She's All That than Jodie Foster is in The Silence of the Lambs? Okay,
I legitimately believe Rachel Lee Cook gives a better performance in Tom and Huck than Jodie Foster gives in Tom Sawyer.
bold statement. Bold statements here.
I have said it.
You said it. So
and
what
it's
address
out
do
there.
people send hate mail to?
I mean, is there anything Jodie Foster's doing in Tom Sawyer that you thought was really great?
No.
Like, Rachel Lee Cook has a great presence to her in Tom and Huck. Like, that was like her mini breakthrough, I want to say. I don't know if she had done anything before that movie. Like, maybe a couple things. Was she in Babysitter's Club? She might have been in that.
I was
But Tom and Huck was kind of like the first time we all that was when we all noticed Rachel Lee Cook was Tom and Huck. And then She's All That is 99, a few years later. I don't know what she did in between.
A lot of,
but she like her banter with Jonathan Taylor Thomas is really fun. I don't know why I'm sticking up for Tom and Huck. It's not like that's a great movie. Today on Film at 50, Brian is defending Tom and Huck.
So I didn't.
It's a great piece of filming.
I didn't know this, but Rachel Lee Cook not only was young Jackie O in The House of Yes with Parker Posey.
Oh, okay. I never saw that.
Also, I remember liking that movie a lot. She was also the younger version of Holly Hunter in Living Out Loud.
Oh, okay. So she had that run of, like, I think Jenna Malone had that too, where they would be like Jenna Malone was young Jodie Foster in Contact. Like, they would,
my God, I forgot all about that.
Remember that, where she runs at down the hallway and then you find out it's a mirror? Like, it was like a really crazy visual effect in that movie. But yeah, some of these young actors, like, their career for 3 years was just playing the younger famous person in the movie.
Have very strong feelings about Jenna Malone.
So Rachel Lee Cook didn't have like a major role in anything before She's All That. Like, She's All That was like the first like leading role kind of a thing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm looking at. Yeah.
That was a great movie to see when I was in middle school with all my friends. Opening night, She's All That. That was a good one. Did you like She's All
That? Yeah, I used to be. I remember Entertainment Weekly did a whole article about 98, 99 was like the teen movie
Renaissance. Yeah.
And I remember I used to be insanely obsessed with Sarah Michelle Gellar, and Sarah Michelle Gellar in She's All That. And my best friend
that's right, she's in One Shot.
She like hands somebody her like A in the cafeteria, and I remember finding out and telling my friend who loved She's All That. I was like, Sarah Michelle Gellar's in that. She's like, she's for 5 seconds, and I was like, but you did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a good time to be a Sarah Michelle Gellar fan, you know, with Buffy, I Know What You Did Last Summer, Scream 2. And then it wasn't just simply Irresistible and Cruel Intentions in early 99. It was also She's All That, because she is in one shot of that movie.
Someone just gave me a copy of Simply Irresistible.
Simply Irresistible, which I believe is the last movie that Gene Siskel reviewed before he died.
Oh my God, is it?
That was the last one. I've read that before. He watched that movie, he gave it a favorable 3-star review, and then he died.
Oh, we're coming up with a lot of truths here. Screw Jodie Foster. Simply Irresistible. Who knew? I did not know that. Wow.
I like that Sarah Michelle Gellar is kind of back doing things again. She kind of went off the radar there for what, 6-7 years. We hadn't really heard much from her, and she's in a couple new projects now. So I'm happy to see her again. And like when I go on YouTube and there she is, I'm like, oh, she looks so great. She looks stunning.
Yeah. She
she's like 45. Really, what is she, like mid-40s?
Yeah.
She looks unbelievable.
She looks great. She my friend, who the one I was talking about, who loves She's All That, she was just in Savannah for the Savannah TV festival, and she was there. Sarah Michelle Gellar was there with I can't remember the name of the show she's on, but she
Wolf something
Walkers. No, that's an animated movie. What am I talking about?
Wolf Pack? No.
Wolf Pack, is that it?
Is it Wolf? No, I don't think it's Wolf Pack.
It's now Wolf Pack. That's what I'm calling it.
Wolf something.
But she got to like ask her one question.
Oh.
The video of it, and I was just like, I would have died. I'm really happy that it wasn't me, because I would.
Oh, it is Wolf Pack. It was.
Is it? Oh, okay. I thought we were good. Yeah.
Yeah, Buffy the Vampire Slayer is my favorite show. Like when people ask me what my favorite show, that's it. That's the greatest show, and it's not perfect. There's some couple of seasons I'm not in love with as much as the others, but that is for me the high bar for television.
I'm due for a rewatch of that. I remember when Entertainment Weekly named that the best show for like season 4 or 5. And I remember being like, look, the show I love is legitimate.
I lived in LA for a few years, and I would just for funsies, sometimes there was a website where it would tell you like what like when the premieres were of movies.
Yeah.
Like that's how I finally got to go meet my all-time favorite, Sandra Bullock. Went to a couple of her premieres, and I was just that crazy guy like Sandra. But I went to the premiere of Scooby-Doo 2 Monsters Unleashed, and I brought my Buffy the Vampire Slayer calendar for Sarah to sign, and she signed it, and she didn't look very thrilled about it. And I think like 04, I don't think she was really like super high on Buffy in 04, a year after that she had wrapped. She probably, of all the actors I got close to, got to talk to, whatever, in LA, the years I lived there, Sarah Michelle Gellar was the smallest. Like she was the shortest.
Oh, really? Okay.
Like she like came up to my waist. She was so tiny. I was like, that's
super tall.
That was, I mean, I'm tall.
Okay.
But Sandra Bullock was, you know, a reasonable height. Like I could talk to, like, I mean, I was like looking way down. I was like, that's Buffy.
She could, yeah.
Coming up to my waist, kicking out. But anyway, back to Tom Sawyer.
I was like, Tom Sawyer, right? Yeah.
Sarah Michelle Gellar would have been too. I don't think she was born yet, was she? I don't think she would have been in this movie.
She was born. I think she was born in 79.
Her first role was like a Burger King commercial, and then she got sued about it when she was 5. Yeah, did you read that story?
I remember that. I did a report on Sarah Michelle Gellar in like 8th grade.
You did a report.
Yeah, it was something like we had to do a report on a famous person or something that happened, and I did Sarah Michelle Gellar, and I remember my teacher being like, "What is this?" And I was like, "My report." What, Sarah Michelle Gellar?
So yeah, I mean, when it comes to Tom Sawyer, like if you know the book well, a lot of the famous scenes are here, and they're done fine. I just thought this was an opportunity to do a big like song and dance with some of these iconic moments from the story by Mark Twain. It doesn't quite land in that way, so I'm kind of like, well, what are we doing here? We're just kind of telling the story we all know. The performances are all fine. There's nothing really outstanding in the movie, and so it honestly surprises me a little bit that the movie comes out in March and then a year later gets 3 Oscar nominations, like that it hung on a year later for people to award it not just in like one category, costume design, but to give it 3 kind of surprised me.
So you're saying this is like the bullet points version of the story of Tom Sawyer. Yeah, I don't know. Sometimes I wonder if, this is what, early 70s. I was like, not to sound maybe there obviously just isn't as much
There
stuff.
wasn't enough to award.
I don't know. I mean, that's the year of the Sting, right? So I mean,
This is the year of the Sting,
year of the Sting.
which I
Maybe
saw one time in high school and I have no memory of it. So it's going to be kind of new to me when we get to that in December. The Oscar winning Best Picture, Best Director of 73. Have you seen The Sting?
I don't think I have. I don't think so. There are a bunch of movies that I know that I've seen once, but I remember nothing about them. So it's like I've never seen them. Like I've seen The Godfather. Could not tell you one other thing other than the bullet point version of it. So
Oh, The Godfather's so great. I love that movie.
So I mean, maybe it is. Trying to find what else is nominated that year.
So, yeah, do you want to talk about the Oscar nominations for the movie?
Sure.
Okay, so first off, before the Oscars, Tom Sawyer received 2 Golden Globe nominations, Best Original Score and Best Motion Picture, Comedy, or Musical.
Okay.
Like, this could have been a Golden Globe winner for Best Motion Picture of the Year, but it didn't happen.
Oof.
Let me see what won that year. I want to see. When it came to the Oscars, it was nominated for Best Art Direction, Set Decoration, which I believe nowadays that's just production design, right? That's what they call it now.
Yeah.
And then it got into costume design, as you said. And then it got into Best Music. That category in the 70s is really confusing. Sometimes there'll be sometimes there'll be like 3 categories.
Yeah.
Like 2 will be score, 1 will be song, but it'll be called something else. So in 74, the category is Best Music, Scoring, Original Song Score, and or Adaptation. Does that make any sense to you? Like
music.
the word score is twice in the thing. Like we have to say it twice. And adaptation. So I guess that because it's like an adaptation of a book, I guess it's like how we have Best Adapted Screenplay. Like back in 74, that played a role in the music. It's very strange.
That's silly.
Like just call it Best Original Score and Best Song. That's what we have now.
Yeah, because there's also Best Original Dramatic Score. Yeah, why isn't it? Because they also have a Best Song category. So dramatic score, best song, and then scoring and the title you just mentioned.
So so real quick at the Golden Globes, where we talk about the 3 Oscar categories. So Tom Sawyer, it's in Best Motion Picture, Comedy, or Musical. The other nominees are Jesus Christ Superstar, which is coming up here in a couple months, I want to say. And then Paper Moon, which is coming up soon, the Peter Bogdanovich film with the Oscar-winning performance by Tatum O'Neal. A Touch of Class, which is Best Actress Oscar winner, Glenda Jackson. And then the winner of the category at the Golden Globes is American Graffiti. That's a pretty banger category. And I don't know what Tom Sawyer's doing there. Tom Sawyer is kind of the outlier there.
I guess, sometimes I used to joke that if you are a musical, you will automatically just get a Golden Globe in this category. So I guess technically they're like, well, it's a musical. Put it in there.
But I feel like if the movie opened in March, Tom Sawyer, it must have had its fans if come January, February the following year, it's getting nominated for Best Picture at the Golden Globes. Like clearly some people were into this, right? Like I wonder what I guess they just like the nostalgia and like I don't think there's anything in this movie that's worthy of Best Picture of the Year. This is very strange.
Maybe they just liked it because it's short. It's a short movie. Like
this is the one film of 73 under 2 hours. Let's give it something.
Like nominated. Like there's a bunch of Emmy rules. Like at the Emmys, they Best Director of a comedy, they have a default where one movie has to be or one show has to be nominated that is like a multicam format. So Maybe there's a secret under 100 minutes role. Just gave it Tom Sawyer for that.
Okay, so let's talk about its Oscar nominations. The first one is art direction. It is up against something called Brother, Sun, Sister, Moon. I don't know what that is. The Way We Were, The Exorcist, and the winner is The Sting. The Sting did very well at the 74 Oscar ceremony. Like, it won a lot. So what do we think of that category?
I mean, it beat it for, best scoring original song score adaptation of. I'm sorry, which category are you talking about?
Oh, art direction.
I think the art direction is fine in this. I actually feel like the time that it stuck out to me, the art direction, is towards the end with the cave. I think they did some.
Oh yeah, that was nice.
I think sometimes, I mean, I don't know what filming locations they have, but I assume that was a set. So, I sometimes like it when things are recognized for like outdoor work, even though it's like obviously inside of a cave, because sometimes we sort of don't think of production design in that way. So that's a fine nomination. I wouldn't give it an Oscar. I'm fine with it losing there.
Yeah, I think The Sting, I mean, the little I remember of it, like, that's a movie with a lot of great interior art direction. Like, that makes sense to me.
Yeah.
And then The Exorcist for art direction. That's an interesting nomination. Like, what about, I mean, that's most of that movie's, a lot of that movie's in a room. That's an interesting nomination.
Yeah. Maybe it's just the word I'm thinking of, like the affluent,
the bed shaking.
The bed. I love how you draped the bedposts in sheets and ropes.
Yeah. And then second category is costume design. The other nominees are Ludwig, The Way We Were, again, Cries and Whispers, which will be in the next couple weeks. We're talking Cries and Whispers. That also came out in the United States in March of 73. And the winner is The Sting, Edith Head. Edith Head, man. She was costume designing into the 70s. Like, she had quite a run at the Oscars. How many did she win? Like, more than 10?
8.
Is it 8?
No, it's 8. This was The Sting was her last.
It was the last win.
It was the last one. I think in the late, because there was a break in between, because she won for Facts of Life. I think that was the one before that.
Okay. So
like the 40s and 50s, she was just like, it was like boom, 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 win, and then there was like
a lull,
7 or 8 nominations in between, and then she won again, and then like 7 or 8 nominations in between, I think. So I don't know. When did you just head down?
So she had 30. I'm reading here. She had 35 Oscar nominations total, and she won 8.
Won 8.
Yeah. And it was really trippy. My favorite film is Sunset Boulevard. And in November, one of the 4 stars of that movie, who is still with us, Nancy Olson, she's 94. She did a Q&A in LA. I went to go see a friend for the weekend, and we went to the Q&A, and I got to meet her, and she signed a book. She just wrote a memoir.
Okay.
And she was talking to me about how Edith Head, who did the costumes for Sunset Boulevard, like all the costumes that she brought for Nancy Olson to wear in that movie, Billy Wilder didn't like, and Nancy Olson didn't like. So Nancy Olson decided to just wear her own clothes in the movie, and that's what she wears in Sunset Boulevard. I'm like, well, so I said, wait a second. So 35-time Oscar nominee, 8-time Oscar winner Edith Head, like, couldn't come up with good clothes for Nancy Olson for Sunset Boulevard. That's really funny to me. But it was really strange to be talking to someone who, like, at one point in time was like working with Edith Head. Like, that was really cool.
That is really cool. Wow. I like that.
And obviously, like, Gloria Swanson and Billy Wilder, that was just trippy. I was like, I mean, my favorite film, the other 3 actors died before we were born, and the 4th one is still alive in 2023. That was kind of cool.
That's crazy. Oh, that is so crazy. Oh, wow.
So yeah, Edith Head wins for this thing that you said that's her last win.
Yes.
Okay.
She died in 81.
Oh, okay.
So the last.
But what a run she had. What was her last nomination?
Airport 77. Yeah,
Nice.
some of her last 5 nominations were
Was she nominated for Airport 75?
she was nominated for Airport. Her last 5 nominations were Sweet Charity, Airport, The Sting, The Man Who Would Be King, and Airport 77.
Okay. Because Gloria Swanson and Nancy Olson are in Airport 75.
Oh god, that would be crazy. What if every time she just sees Nancy Olson, she was just like, "Bring your own clothes"?
Bring your own clothes. Oh,
I don't.
Nancy.
Oh, you again.
I don't have to worry about you. Just bring your own clothes.
Cute sweater set you're wearing. Wear that to set.
Okay, so the last category, it's only 3 nominees for music, scoring, original song score, and adaptation or scoring adaptation. That's what it says on the Oscar website. It's kind of wordy, guys.
Yeah.
So the nominees are Tom Sawyer, Jesus Christ Superstar. The winner is again The Sting. So The Sting beat Tom Sawyer 3 times. It must have stung.
Oh man.
Sorry, Tom. Couldn't do it this time.
Don Taylor probably
if it had gotten 1 win, you would have given it costume design.
I would have given it costume design until I realized it was Edith Head's last Oscar.
Oh.
And
if she only had 7, that would have been sad.
You'd have an unlucky 7. So I don't think I wouldn't give it music.
No.
I wouldn't give it production design. So I guess by default, yes, costume design. If I could give it none, then I would give it none. But if I had to give it one, I would give it for costume.
Yeah. Just for Celeste Holmes' bonnet, I think it deserved something.
Yeah, what was the name of the actress who comes in and like eats all their food? She like what is her name? Aunt Polly? No, that's Celeste Holmes. She comes in and she sits down at the table and the young girl is just like, "Oh, what a beautiful hat." Can I? I'm using that voice, but she was like, "Can I take your hat?" She like takes it off, and I was like, "I would wear that. I would wear a stupid bonnet everywhere." So yes. Sorry, I'm just rambling about hats.
But I mean, we're going to talk about a lot of great films released in 73 that got no Oscar nominations and some great films that got 1. And Tom Sawyer got 3. So I think it's worth mentioning. My last piece of trivia about the movie is that I mentioned it once before, there is a sequel. In 74, we got the sequel Huckleberry Finn, released just a few months later, the first musical adaptation of the Huck Finn story. Jeff East, who played Huck in the Tom Sawyer film, he returned as Huck Finn in the sequel, and Lucille Benson returned. They were the only 2 actors who appeared in both movies. So who was Lucille Benson? Who did she play in Tom Sawyer? I'm trying to remember. Let's see. Oh, she was Witter Douglas. She was like that older woman. I think there's a lot of close-ups of her at the funeral, like we're in the church, where she's like sobbing, like, oh. She was very sad to see Tom and Huck be dead until they weren't. So they couldn't get Jodie Foster back. She was too in demand by 74, Joey. She was working with Martin Scorsese in 74 on Alice Doesn't Live Here Anymore.
Do you think she would have just hung up the phone? Like, "Hi, do you want to come back?"
Hi. Oh, hi, Mom. It's just my agent. Hi. Do I want to do what? Oh, they're doing a sequel to Huckleberry Finn? What? Screw you.
Philanderer.
I'm not going to win my Oscar doing a sequel to Tom Sawyer. Okay. Click. Hey, agent, can you get me Martin Scorsese? I need to get him on the phone.
I hope that's how Jodie Foster talked to. Hey, agent.
Hey, manager. It is kind of weird to watch Jodie Foster and Tom Sawyer. She looks so young, to know that 3 years later she's in Taxi Driver, earning her first Oscar nomination for playing, a teenage prostitute. Like she looks much older in Taxi Driver than she does here. It looks like 7 years have passed and it's only 3. That's very strange to me.
Yeah, when you think of how I thought about that when I'm looking it up now, 'cause I haven't seen Taxi Driver in forever,
Yeah, that's 76.
but like I think the copy of Taxi Driver that I have of her, with the hat on and stuff, I kept thinking of that while I was watching Tom Sawyer, and I was like, night and day. I don't know. She just looks so much. Yeah, I'm just looking at a picture of her now. I can't believe that's only 3 years.
Like, I mean, if you were to tell me that
Okay.
she was like 8 years old in Tom Sawyer and that she was 15 in Taxi Driver, I'd believe you.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
weird. It's weird to me that it's only 3. But boy, her career is about to take off. I mean, she does more kid stuff. She does Freaky Friday in 77. And I mean, when does she really like transition into becoming an adult actress? Like in the early to mid 80s, I want to say. I feel like she took a little break and then she started making more adult films. And then her big breakthrough, of course, is The Accused in 88 that won her her first of 2 Oscars.
Let's see. Taxi Driver, Freaky Friday, Bengali. I guess that would probably be the huge one, The Accused.
Yeah.
I haven't seen a lot. I'm looking at some of the stuff in between. I haven't seen a lot or even heard of a lot of like what is the American drama Carney, where she plays a waitress who joins a traveling carnival with Gary Busey.
I don't know, but I think
Watch
she might
that.
have more. I think she might have more chemistry with Gary Busey than she did with Johnny Whitaker.
Johnny Whitaker's gonna be.
Would you watch the Huck Finn sequel or no?
I mean, if Johnny Whitaker's not in it, that's fine. Well, I mean, I think we both agree that
Jeff East was better.
yeah, I don't know. He's at that age where you can kind of tell that, you know, it could be something exciting for him. I would watch it.
I'm totally getting an email from the Johnny Whitaker fan club. The
You're
big
not
old,
the president
it's
of
just a giant middle finger in the middle,
just a giant middle finger emoji.
in the center of the email. Just listen to your Tom Sawyer episode. Here you go. But yeah, so any other scenes in the movie before we move on to our final 2 segments? Anything else we wanted to say about it? I mean, I guess if you're like a huge fan of the book and you're kind of a completist and you want to see the adaptation, I think this is the only major adaptation they did around this time.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And if you want, I would say, like for me, it's like if you want to see a young Jodie Foster, like it's kind of like one of the big reasons to see it. Like have some dramatic scene.
Yeah, I think when I was watching the credits and I had forgotten that she was in it, and it was like Jodie Foster or so and so.
Yeah.
I don't think any of the other scenes are I would say notable in my opinion. I did want to say I think my favorite line delivery in the whole movie is when they realize that the kids are gone and they're in the cave.
Mm-hmm.
And I think somebody runs up to Celeste's home and they were like, "Oh, he's in so and so cave. That's the last time I saw him." And there's a batch of kids behind them, and one of this little girl just says, "I told him not to go in there." Fine. She has opinions about Tom Sawyer. That made me actually, and I don't know why, it made me cackle when I heard that line. It's like she doesn't like Tom Sawyer. There's a whole other movie about hating Tom Sawyer that we haven't seen.
One scene I didn't mention, I don't know if I liked it. It was interesting, was the scene in the classroom. Because I'm a teacher, I'm always interested in how teachers are represented on film and stuff. And there's that very crotchety old guy teacher, and he's writing on the chalkboard or whatever, and Becky and Tom are passing notes back and forth, right?
Risky, very risky.
And it's got some suspense. Like you're waiting for the teacher to turn around. And then is it Tom who drops it? Right? Doesn't he drop it and then the teacher's like, "Get on up here." And then Tom just bends over, and then the teacher just starts swatting him really hard for 10 seconds. And then it cuts to the next scene. I'm like,
yeah, I was like,
interesting.
The punishment? And I was like, okay.
There was were there words spoken? It was just like, "Tom, get up here." And then Tom is he's been through this before because he just was like, okay. And then the students watch as he just gets just swatted really violently for 10 seconds. And I'm like, What am I to take away from this moment?
You need to add this into your curriculum. Make it
No.
happen. But
No.
it's like, but I actually thought it was funny also in that scene where he hears the slate platter on the ground and he walks around his desk and he was like, whose slate is this? I was like, this is the desks. Who doesn't have a slate?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that like I'm always just amazed. Like, okay, there was a time where teachers would do that,
Children.
like just beat kids and have just no remorse, no like just okay.
They're like, so now open your math books.
Like, and then what? Tom sits down after that, and then he says, "Yeah, get out your math books. Time turn to
Yeah.
page 7." But
Right.
but it wasn't a very funny or amusing scene. It wasn't like it didn't have like a capper at the end, like a wink or wink back at Becky. It was just like it just ends like in this like tragic note. I was like, okay.
Yeah.
I don't know what we're gonna take away from this, but again, I was the biggest disappointment for me was I wanted like a bigger musical, and I didn't get that. I thought it was gonna be like a big, wild and crazy showstopper kind of a thing, and most of the songs are sung like through voiceover, which I found very strange. It felt like the director did not want to make it a musical, and it was forced on him. Like said, no, Don Taylor, this has to be a musical. And he went, how can I get around that? How about they sing songs, but they don't actually sing it live. Like it's not like in the scene. We're just hearing them sing it.
Like, Mr. Taylor, the readers of Reader's Digest love musicals.
And this isn't like a big time for musicals. It's weird because I keep talking. We just talked about Godspell that will have dropped just a week or two ago, and then Jesus Christ Superstar is coming up here. So like they're being made. Like musicals are opening around this time, but I don't know if a lot. Maybe part of it is because it's a year after Cabaret and that movie did so well. Maybe there's like a little bit of thinking around this time, like, oh, let's make some more musicals. But I feel like most people assume there's not a lot in the mid 70s. Like that's not a great time for musicals because there were so many flops at the end of the 60s. Like it was like every next musical Julie Andrews made brought in less box office than the last one for a while there after Sound of Music and Mary Poppins did so well. But I mean, they're still happening around this time, and we've just talked about 2, and there's going to be another one coming up here. So musicals, they're not dead, even in 73. So my last question about the movie, Joey, before we move on to the final 2 segments, I asked this of each of my guests. If they were to make this now, what would the movie look like? So if we got a Tom Sawyer adaptation in 2023, what would it look like, do you think?
I think it would look like a limited series on something else.
An 8-episode limited series on Netflix with some up and coming young actor.
Yeah, I think
like
so.
Like an Enola Holmes kind of a thing, like with a Stranger Things actor or something.
It would probably have all anachronistic dialogue, but the costuming and the production design would be period.
Mm.
It would probably be Tom Sawyer narrating it, winking at the camera. Probably think it would look like to me.
Yeah. I don't think, I mean, everybody knows Tom Sawyer, so there's title familiarity with it. I don't know what kind of a movie they could make now that it would get a theatrical release. Like I feel like it'd have to be like a really big movie by an important director or something to get a theatrical release. To do a Tom Sawyer or a Huck Finn movie now, I feel like they would probably just drop on Netflix or Disney Plus or something. I don't think there'd be enough people today to want to go see in a theater a Tom Sawyer movie, right?
If you say big time director, like who do you think right now?
If Steven Spielberg made a $90 million Tom Sawyer adaptation with a big kid star, that'd probably go to theater, right?
Yeah, and then everybody on Twitter would complain about how they've seen it before, and then I'm still really bitter about some of the reaction to West Side Story. If they're gonna, Steven Spielberg would be the type of person who could do that and open it and do it well.
Mm-hmm.
But I can't think of very many other directors who has that 4 quadrant quotient of being able to pull people into an actual theater that have to be released at Christmas or Thanksgiving.
Right.
Yeah. So I agree.
I mean, is there? I'm trying to think. Is there an actor who could portray Tom Sawyer today who would have the clout to bring in a lot of audiences? Like, how old is Tom Sawyer in the book? Like, is he like 13, 12? I mean, I think in movies, I think it can, like in the 73 film we just talked about, he was like 11, 10, somewhere around there. And then Jonathan Taylor Thomas and Tom and Huck, he was like 12, 13. So the Stranger Things kids are too old. So I'm like, is there someone who could, I don't like, is there a kid actor now who can pull in audiences in a theater? Like, I don't know if there is one anymore. Like there used to be. I don't think that we have those now. But I don't know, if I were making this now, I feel like I would rather go with like kind of an up and coming young actor, and it'd be a movie or a limited series for Netflix. That would probably be, that's probably what I would do, is have it be an unknown actor and not make it for very much money and have it be like a Netflix film or a limited series or something. I would actually kind of be interested in seeing Tom Sawyer kind of slow, because it is so episodic of a story, to kind of have it slow down and have like a 6 to 8 episode limited series and like really get more invested in the world of its characters. That could be interesting. I might like that.
Or I could actually see them if they did like a series about it. I would not be surprised if they did the character you know, the story you don't, and it was just what happened to Tom Sawyer after he went to blah blah blah.
Tom Sawyer as an adult, like Henry Cavill or something. Tom Sawyer as like, get a hot Chris Evans as Tom Sawyer.
I'm Thomas Sawyer now.
Thomas Sawyer.
Thomas Sawyer.
Ladies man.
Oh god. A huge like friendship breakup scene with Huck fan. Yeah.
It's like, weren't they in the last 10 years, weren't they talking about doing like a Hardy Boys movie, them as adults, with Tom Cruise and Ben Stiller? Didn't they read that one?
And then
it's all of these crazy ideas.
Yeah, they read it again. They're like, no, what were we thinking?
But like, what was the last Tom Sawyer or Huck Finn adaptation? Like, has there been one since Tom and Huck? I couldn't remember any. Like I mean, I'm sure in the last 28 years we've had a couple, but none of them like stood out. At least if they did open in theaters, or maybe a couple went direct to video. I don't know.
There was a ballet in 2011. Ballet.
I didn't see that one.
A version in 2014. Tom Sawyer and Huckleberry Finn, starring Joel Courtney and Jake T. Austin. Don't know who those young men are. See, you can't pull people in.
There's a 2000 Tom Sawyer animated musical comedy where Tom Sawyer and friends are like chipmunks.
I actually think when I was going through some of these, I think I saw that. And I think I blocked it from my mind, because when I was going through some of the, the other versions of it, I distinctly remember that poster. And I think I saw it and was freaked out by it. So I was like, why are they mice? Why?
Someone should make like a really creepy, like horror film adaptation of Tom Sawyer.
Like a Winnie the Pooh.
Like where Tom goes, he turns bad.
He chokes people with a paintbrush. Or drowns them in the river.
Yeah, I think it's time. If we're getting the Winnie the Pooh horror film, like, might as well, right?
I think it's time.
Sawyer.
Oh god, that would be great. I would watch that.
But yeah, I think like a Netflix 6-episode limited series with like really strong production value, costume design, and maybe mostly unknown cast, I think would be the way to go. I don't think it would work as like a theatrical movie now. I don't know what you would do that would entice audiences to want to go to the theater to see Tom Sawyer. I don't know.
Yeah, or if you cast an unknown and populate the rest with like famous people.
Yeah. Meryl Streep could play the Celeste Holm
Great.
character.
Yeah.
Meryl Streep, who is one of my favorites, and it's been weird having her absent from movie screens. I don't know about you. Like, it's been weird. I'm like,
Someone pointed out
what's
that
she
like her
doing?
last someone pointed out her last Oscar nomination was The Post, and I was like, that's not right. And then
Yeah.
I was like, oh my God, you're right. That's crazy. Well, she's in a new limited series coming up on Apple.
Yeah, that's dropping. That will be dropping around the time that this drops.
Oh, okay.
Extrapolations on Apple TV. I
Yeah,
don't
I
think
have the
she's in the
screener for
whole
that.
thing. I think
I
she's
think
in
she's in
just
one
like
episode.
one episode. It's like
It's like
a anthology or something.
yeah, like every episode takes place in a different year, so
Right.
that's pack as many famous people into it as
And
possible.
then they just announced that she's in season 3 of Only Murders in the Building, which I'm very excited about. That will be cool.
When I saw
But
that,
I'm like, is she not getting
oh,
offered movie scripts? Like, what's going on? She taking time off? I don't know.
of all people, I'm like, no, we're not going to give it to Meryl Streep. Let someone else do it.
But yeah, I mean, it's so silly, but it is like, it's kind of a big deal to me as an Oscar nerd. Like, since her film debut in 77, the longest stretch between nominations was 1991 to 1996, between Postcards from the Edge and Bridges of Madison County. And then we just passed that now. The Post was
Really?
the Post was spring of 2018, and she didn't have a film, so this will now be the longest stretch ever between nomination. Even if she was in a movie by December of this year, got nominated next year, that will be 6 years. So it will be the longest stretch.
Ought to be an actor whose longest stretch is
I know. it's very, very important problems. But I hope she comes back. She still brings it, man. Like, I'm hoping in the next year or two we get a really great, juicy lead role from her again. I hope she finds that project. But yeah, she could be in the Tom Sawyer movie. But yeah, so we'll see. I will be surprised if by the end of this decade we haven't seen something Tom Sawyer-y that comes up in like a big way. Like, I could see Tom Sawyer and or Huck Finn like coming back in some way, whether it's streaming or something.
Yeah, it's a sort of classic Americana thing.
Yeah.
There's a reason why you keep coming back to it.
Exactly. All right, so our final 2 segments are next. The first one's the Divine Double Feature. That's where we pick a modern film to pair with our movie we talked about. So what would you pair with 1973's Tom Sawyer? That's a little bit newer.
So I actually had, for some reason, I had a really hard time when I was thinking about this question. But something that I would pair with it that I feel like is kind of cheating is there's a series on Amazon or Prime Video, whatever they want to be called now, called Anne with an E.
Oh, right. Wasn't that Netflix?
Yeah, what did I say? Prime Video? I thought it was Prime Video.
I never saw it, but I think it was on Netflix.
I saw some of it. It's something. The reason why I kept thinking about that, I kept thinking about this question, and I was like, I'll put that on the back burner if I can think of something else. And then I think it would be interesting to pair with it, just because Tom Sawyer, and including with like Huck Finn, it's very like boy heavy. But Anne with an E is sort of earnestly done, maybe what they wanted to do with Tom Sawyer. But it does include a lot of modern, important thematic material. So I think it'd be interesting maybe to have something like that paired with Tom Sawyer. I bet as soon as you tell me what yours is, I'm gonna be like, oh, that's great. I should have thought of that.
Oh no, I struggled too with this. I was like, what's like something in the last 15 years that would pair well with a old Tom Sawyer? And I was trying to think of, like, part of me wanted to say Good Boys. Like, let's just go in a new direction, like movies about friendship between boys. But I went with a really good musical aimed at kids and families. One of my favorites of the last 15 years, like with great songs in it, Oscar-winning song, a movie that I still listen to the soundtrack here and there, The Muppets from 2011.
I love that.
Which I
That's
think
great.
is I think it's a better musical kind of aimed at kids live action than Tom Sawyer is. And I think that'd be kind of a fun way
Okay.
to see a more modern kids musical. Because boy, some of those songs in that movie still slap today, 12 years later. I love the
Some
opening
good stuff in
song.
there. That's a great
And
song.
Man or Muppets really great.
That's a great song.
And I'm a huge Amy Adams fan. I love her in that movie. Like she can do no wrong for me. Well, until the
Yeah,
last
me
5 years. That's another story.
why? What happened?
Amy Adams, come on, man. Come on back from the dark side. Oh my God.
I would actually say, since you say musicals, if you're thinking of coming of age stuff for boys, just off the top of my head, what about Sing Street? Sing Street.
Ooh, Sing Street.
I'm really
Great
mad
movie.
that that movie did not get an Oscar nomination, because I think that song "Drive It Like You Stole It" that's one of the best songs
Mm.
in the last 10 years. That, and I'm mad that that did not get nominated. So,
I just saw the director's new film at Sundance, Flora and Son,
yeah.
and it's wonderful. Got it. It was the only
Mhm.
screening I attended the 3 days I was in Park City that got a standing ovation. The last
Okay.
scene is like this beautiful song, just rocks the house, and then like the whole theater, everyone just leapt to their feet. It's just a great final 5 minutes of that movie. It's really good.
I really
Joseph
like those movies.
Gordon-Levitt's in it. Joseph Gordon-Levitt and what's her name? Eve Hewson is the lead female.
Oh, okay.
She is
Yeah.
great. Like she gives a
Okay.
great starring role turn in that. And yeah, I've really like John Carney is a director. He doesn't reinvent the wheel like I'm watching Flora and Son. I'm like, we're kind of treading on familiar territory here, but he does it
Mhm.
so well that you just love every minute.
Yeah. Even like something like Begin Again. Like
Yeah,
Begin Again is like, that's good. That's solid.
great songs. I love the
Yeah,
soundtrack of
great
that.
song. Me too.
Mhm. And then, of
Yeah.
course, Once blew me away. I remember I had just graduated from college, and that was one of the first films I saw in a theater after I graduated. And that movie was like, like blew me away. I love that movie. So that, yeah, John Carney, Sing Street. That's a good idea too. Very nice. All right, that takes us to our final segment, Beyond the Flick. Tom and Huck adaptations. So what are the other ones you've seen? Either Tom and or Huck.
Uh, uh, road diverge with these two. I guess Tom and Huck, if you know, put a gun to my head, be like, what's your go-to
Tom...
something? I'd be like, yeah, Tom and Huck. Probably
Could
Tom and Huck.
happen.
Could happen. We
You
don't
could
know.
be in a grocery store and someone just puts that gun up to your skull, says which Tom Sawyer adaptation.
Yeah. Crazy.
Tom and Huck.
Tom and Huck. And they'll be like, all right, you may go.
You have answered correctly.
Yeah.
An
But I think
underrated Rachel Lee Cook performance, and then the guy walks away.
as he's walking away, he turns around and he's like, she's better than Jodie Foster.
No, he turns around and goes, "Whatever happened to that JTT?"
I think the only ones that I've now seen three. That one, the creepy mouse one, and the 73 one. Which I feel
the mouse one from 2000.
yeah, I think that's the only other one that I've seen.
Okay.
I'm
Yeah.
actually a little afraid to like I'm saying that I've seen it, but I gotta make sure that I've seen it, but I'm a little too scared to like put it into YouTube and like look at it. But
I looked at the box cover,
Yeah.
looked questionable.
It's terrifying. I mean, Betty White does a voice, so how wrong?
Betty White. I would rather watch a short documentary about how Betty White came to voice a character in that movie than I would the movie itself.
Yeah, that'd be way more.
Betty White at home with her animals and gets
like
the phone
83
call.
dogs.
Betty, you've received an offer to voice one of the chipmunk Tom Sawyer.
Actually, I would like to think, because Betty White was such an animal activist, they were like, we're doing Tom Sawyer again. But
with animal.
It's like, since I love animals, I'm sure you came to me because all the characters are animals, and they're like, Betty White wants to do it, so we have to change it. Like,
Betty White said yes.
we have to.
Okay, so I have not seen that version.
Oh.
Like, if I'm ever hanging out with my nephews and we're just like bored, like looking, they're 5 and 8. If we're like looking for something to watch and that pops up on Tubi or something, we'll put it on. And they'll probably leave the room eventually, and I'll just be sitting there watching.
because of Betty White and Don Knotts.
Be like, you do not walk out on Betty White. Get back
No.
over
Yeah.
here.
Raise them right. Raise them right, Brian.
So the other three that I've seen, so my number 3 would be Tom and Huck. I think that's a really fun movie. I just watched it a few months ago. It goes down real easy. You know, there's nothing. Brad Renfro's actually very good in that movie too. I like him as Huck, and it's just like a fun watch. I feel like it would work for kids now. Like it has aged well from '95. My number 2 is the one classic adaptation I have seen. It's been many years, but I remember I saw it on TCM one night. I think I was sick. I would like a cold, and I was just like, sometimes I don't know if you do, like when I'm not feeling great, sometimes I'll just put on TCM. I'll just watch some movies on there.
Oh yeah.
And I watched the 1938 adaptation of The Adventures of Tom Sawyer, and it's lovely. It's a lovely movie. You know, most everything that came out in like 38, 39 is kind of great. Like that's just like a golden age of cinema, like the late 30s. Like everyone was just firing on all cylinders around that era.
Yeah.
And so it's a really beautiful adaptation, well shot, well acted. That's a really good one. But if I had to pick my favorite, the one I think is the best is also from the 90s, also Disney, which I don't think we mentioned. And that's The Adventures of Huck Finn with Elijah Wood. That's a great movie.
Oh God.
The Elijah Wood version from 93 is really terrific. And that's also on Disney Plus. And I watched that. That was 93, so I watched that maybe 7 or 8 months ago because I'm going in order by the year. And I hadn't seen that since I was a kid. Like I remember I rented the VHS, I liked it, and I watched it again. And it's a much darker movie than Tom and Huck is from 2 years later. Like it touches on darker themes. And Elijah Wood was such a talented kid actor. He's still obviously a great actor now.
Yeah.
But he was one of the greats. Like in the 90s, like kid actors. And that he did Huck Finn and The Good Son in the same year. Good Son, underrated thriller. I like The Good Son. But one of his best performances as a kid actor for sure is The Adventures of Huck Finn from 93. It's a really fun movie and probably my favorite of the adaptations of either character.
That's right. Oh my God. I don't know how I forgot all about that movie. I remember that wasn't Courtney B. Vance is in that.
Courtney B. Vance.
And like Anne Heche and
that's right. Anne Heche is in it.
Yeah.
It's got some people in it you recognize. I have found that what's been really fascinating about watching some of these 90s movies on Disney Plus is you see some big actors pop up in small roles that wouldn't really be big actors for like 5 to 10 more years.
Yeah.
Like what did I watch? Was it Iron Will from 94, a movie I'd never seen, and Kevin Spacey is in it like as a journalist. And he's like in a big chunk of the movie and I'm like, oh. I didn't even know he was acting in Disney movies ever. Like this is surprising to me. And then what did I watch? So I just watched the last one I just watched was 101 Dalmatians. And like I hadn't seen that movie since I was a kid. I obviously knew Glenn Close and Jeff Daniels, but then the Boris and the two kidnapper guys are Hugh Laurie and then the guy from Harry Potter and what's the other guy? Like so many people that when as a kid you don't recognize them, and then when you're older you're like, oh, I've seen all of these actors in other films. And that was definitely the case with Huck Finn. There's a lot of talent in that movie. I'm trying to remember who else was in it. We pull it up here. So yeah, as you said, Anne Heche I think she was just in a couple scenes. And then Courtney B. Vance was really good in it.
Jason
Robbie Coltrane. He was the other big one. He's
Dana
in that one.
Ivey.
Ron Perlman is great. As Pap Finn. Jason Robards is in it. Dana Ivey as Widow Douglas. Remember her, she was great. Frances Conroy from 6 Feet Under has a small part in Huck Finn. She's terrific too. So it's a great cast. It's on Disney Plus. Yeah, check it out.
I'm gonna watch it.
It's the one to watch, and it's easy to see now. It's on Disney Plus. All right, so that takes us to the end here, Joey. We made it through our Tom Sawyer conversation. It was such a pleasure to have you on Film at 50 for the first time. I'd love for you to tell us where our listeners can find you online, and if you have anything you'd like to promote, now would be the time.
Thanks for having me. It was a lot of fun. I can be found online. I think socials are all Joey Moser 83. I write for Awards Daily, primarily for the television side, but usually we do some coverage for the Oscars. I cover all the short films,
Oh, cool.
stuff like that. Um, I feel like it's oddly quiet. Oscar voting hasn't started as
Yeah.
for this, so I'm waiting for like the couple days before Oscar voting starts. We're gonna get like
Mhm.
pitches out the wazoo, and I'm gonna
Right.
start to stress out. But nothing to plug. Just follow me, everybody. Yeah, just a very thirsty presence on Twitter, and I'm not going to apologize. So, yeah.
Well, thanks for being here, Joey. Thanks to all of you for
You.
listening. You can find us online at filmat50.com. We're on Twitter and Instagram. Check out my YouTube channel for all things Oscars, Brian Rowe Video. And until next time, remember, 50 never looked this good.